Hello, and welcome to the webinar on finalizing your strategic plan maps and using the strategic plan process to select your strategies and strategy proposal forms. I'm Dr. April Schweinhart of Ohio's Collective Impact Training Technical Assistance and Evaluation Team. So as you recall, we have 6 strategic plans to address supply reduction, demand reduction, death prevention, treatment, recovery supports, and our big, hairy, audacious goal, or BHAG. All 6 of these plans are aimed at reducing OUD deaths and increasing access to OUD treatment in your community. The forms and resources for finalizing your strategic plan maps and strategy proposal forms can be found on the Collective Impact Model for Change website under CCIM4C Communities, Communities Funded in 2017, Final Deliverables tab. On the Strategic Planning tab, Strategy Proposal and Strategy Plan Maps, you can find all of the resources you need, including this webinar, and all of your forms and templates. Here's the strategic plan map for any of your opioid-related plans. So this would involve your 3 prevention plans, treatment, and recovery. You should have identified your opioid use disorder outcomes, causal factors, and root causes, as well as the strategies to address these root causes. Notice that the strategy plan map for each of these allows for up to 2 root causes, which then in turn would each need a strategy to address that root cause. Then you can label the outcome for each of these, the outcome for the causal factors, and the opioid use disorder outcomes for the long term. Remember that these should all connect together. The BHAG plan map looks a little different in that we're identifying what the BHAG is rather than the opioid use disorder outcomes. However, you still need your root cause and strategies in those gray boxes. And each of these plan maps also identifies up to 2 root causes. These annotated forms, as well as the blank forms for you to complete and turn in, can be found on the website. Also there is your strategy proposal form. For each strategy that you identify to address each of the root causes that you've identified, you need to complete a strategy proposal form to walk through the intended recipients, how you're addressing their needs, what strategies implemented, how organizations will be involved, how the strategies will be funded, etc., so that we know that the strategy has a good plan in place. To address each of your strategic plan maps and strategy proposal forms, we're now going to go over a few frequently asked questions. So, what's the minimum number of strategic plan maps that your coalition's community or group needs to submit? For this initiative, at a minimum, your coalition or group must submit 1 strategic plan map for each of the plan areas that we discussed before: demand reduction, supply reduction, overdose reduction, treatment, and recovery. This means that at a minimum, you will submit 5 strategic plan maps. Similarly, the minimum number of strategy proposal forms needed to be submitted is also 5. For each strategic plan map completed, your coalition, group, or community must select at least 1 strategy. Therefore, you must complete 1 strategy proposal form for each strategic plan map. Again, this is the minimum. If you've selected 2 strategies for one of your plan areas because you identified 2 root causes, this is not a problem. The strategic plan template accommodates these 2 strategies and your 2 root causes. But if you have 2 strategies, you must submit 2 strategy proposal forms for that specific strategic plan map. one that addresses each of the strategies identified. If you've selected more than 2 strategies, this isn't a problem either. However, note that each strategic plan map only allows for 2 strategies and root causes per plan. Therefore, if you have more than 2 root causes, you should have more than 2 strategies, but you must submit 2 strategic plan maps and a strategy form for each strategy identified. So if you have 3 strategies, for example, you would have 1 strategic plan map with 2 root causes and 2 strategies, and a second with the 3rd root cause and strategy. And then you would need 3 strategic strategy prevention forms as well. You do not have to submit a strategic plan map or strategy prevention form for your BHAG unless you received implementation funding from Ohio MAS for the BHAG. If you did receive implementation funding to fund a strategy related to your Big, Hairy, Audacious goal, then you must submit a strategic plan map and strategy proposal form for this as well. So in this case, you would submit 6 strategic plan maps and strategy proposal forms. As I said, if your coalition, group, or community received implementation funding from Ohio MAS for your BHAG, you must submit the associated BHAG strategic plan map and strategy form. Similarly to the other plans, if your coalition, group, or community identified 2 strategies for implementation on the BHAG plan, you must submit 2 strategy proposal forms, one that addresses each strategy. Keep in mind that while this sounds like a lot of forms, we're developing a comprehensive, data-driven strategic plan across the continuum of care, addressing each aspect of prevention, treatment, recovery, and Big, Hairy, Audacious goals that are culturally relevant, sustainable, and address factors that contribute to and exacerbate community-level trauma. We need the strategic plan maps and strategy proposal forms in order to articulate the comprehensive, data-driven strategic plans. This plan was outcome-based, and that's why we need to show on each of the strategic plan maps what the outcomes will be. So what are your next steps in completing your final deliverables for strategic plan maps and strategy proposal forms? At a minimum, you must turn in 5 strategic plan maps and 5 strategy proposal forms. 1 strategy proposal form for each strategic plan map, assuming you only have 1 strategy on each map for demand reduction, supply reduction, overdose reduction, treatment, and recovery supports. So, if you've identified 1 strategy on each of your maps, you turn in 1 strategy for each of your maps. However, for each strategy you identify, you must also turn in a strategy proposal form. So if you identify 2 strategies on a plan map, you need 2 strategy proposal forms. If you identify more than 2 strategies for a specific strategic plan map, you must turn in 2 strategic plan maps because each one can only accommodate 2 strategies. You must also turn in 1 strategic strategy proposal form for each of the strategies identified on your strategic plan maps. If and only if you received implementation funding for your BHAG plan and strategy, you must also turn in your BHAG strategic plan map and strategy proposal form. If you identified 2 strategies on your BHAG plan, you must turn in 2 strategy proposal forms. If you did not receive implementation funding for your BHAG, you are not required to turn in your BHAG strategic plan map or a strategy form for the BHAG. All strategic plan maps and strategy proposal forms are due by April 12th to the CCIM4C deliverables Gmail address. We will be holding drop-in calls to assist you in this process on Tuesday, March 26th from noon to 12:30, Thursday, April 4th from 2 to 2:30, and Monday, April 8th from 10 to 10:30. The connection information and passcode is shown here, and it is also available on the CCIM4C website. Thank you for listening to this guidance webinar, and please tune into the drop-in calls if you have any questions.